Here comes the money. You're now listening to the Gambling with Gold podcast with Jason Gold. Presented by Champions Round.
Welcome to Gambling with Gold. My name is Jason Gold, and as always, I am joined by my buddy from the Action Network, Dan Titus. Dan, the NFL draft is literally in 30 hours, maybe a little less, 27 hours, something like that. Can't wait for it. Sad that I'm not in Vegas, but we'll make do. If anyone has seen my Twitter recently, I released every single bet that I've made thus far, and it gathered some attention because it's the longest list that anyone's put out. I am a complete degenerate, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. How you doing today?
Jason Gold, savage mode. You love to see it. Yeah, man, I'm feeling good. I'm happy it's a day before the draft. I'm excited for the rumors to come out. Just did a couple of podcasts on the Action Network, so I got to hear some insider information, I guess, of sorts to see, what organizations are leaning certain ways. So I think there's going to be there's already been some volatility in the market, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see more swings with a lot of the Vegas. So apparently in Vegas, you can't make bets after 5 p.m. Pacific. So,
Tonight.
A lot of the,
Tonight,
exactly. Yeah. So there's going to be a delay there for all the people that are running the money. They're going to start moving to shift the market. So I think we'll see some breaking news by tomorrow that much of these bets that we've already placed in advance will either come to a head or we're going to be hedging. So it's going to be fun.
I think that we're going to know a lot of information tomorrow. I think that we're pretty close to the end of smoke screen season, but we've also had a giant smoke screen season. I feel like this has gotten absolutely bananas, and the market reflects that. Some of the different numbers in the market that don't really make sense reflect that. I think there's a lot of reporting right now, but no one knows for sure. It's a lot of hinting, but maybe I'm not sure. No reporters are going all in on any of their information right now. So, if you have access to markets tomorrow, I guarantee you that there are going to be locks left on the board for you to go bet on. Just follow the information on Twitter. You will have more concrete sources tomorrow. Go make your money that way. I certainly am going to try to, but that doesn't mean that I haven't put 45, I counted them up, 45 bets in the NFL draft already.
Over under, you get to 60 by tomorrow.
Oh, I'll get to 60 by tonight for sure. Yeah, easy. If you look at, so I have this. If you go to my Twitter page, I have it pinned, the Goldilocks section, the Google sheet. So you'll look at how many bets I'm making per day at this point. From March 8th to April 7th, I made 10 bets, right? So I'm making one or two a week. The last 48 hours, I've made
picked up since Monday.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 in the last 48 hours. So as you get more information, you make more bets. I've saved some bullets, in the chamber for this reason, and there's a lot more where that came from, and I expect to unload the clip by the time we get to Thursday night.
Love it. I love it.
Sound like a drug dealer. It's just gambling.
We just need that money machine gun, man. Where did that go? You gotta get.
I have it somewhere. Where is it?
Get the guns cocked.
Let's go. I'm ready. There's no money in here though, so maybe I'm broke already. I don't know how that's gonna work. All right. All right. Let's get started at the top of the draft here. So Peter King releases his mock draft on Monday. It's Trayvon Walker at number 1. The market had already been moving that direction for a while. He is now currently minus 300. It seems like, based on the sources that I have heard, that it's the GM, Trent Baalke, wants Trayvon Walker. We talked about that on our last show. It definitely seemed like he was leaning that way, and I couldn't believe that he was going to have the stones to actually try and pull that off, or that he had the authority to try and pull it off. So I think at this point we can report pretty solidly that he wants Walker at number 1. We can also report that Doug Peterson would like to take an offensive lineman at number 1, likely Ike Ekwonu. It also seems like he does not have the authority to make that decision, even though he's the one with more power in the relationship. So we're going to take O-line out of here. The real question is, Shad Khan seems like, from the reporting, he wants Aiden Hutchinson. Who wins that battle? Is Trent Baalke actually going to be given the right to make that decision? Given the market, it seems like he will. Is there any chance that we get another surprise and this flips back to Hutchinson tomorrow? Or are we going to wake up and Walker is, minus 1,000 to be the first pick?
I mean, I think it makes sense to hedge right now. Like, I know you already have positions on Hutchinson from way back, but now you can get him an even better value. I think when I looked at your sheet, you had him at like minus 165 early on. We're talking about almost a month ago now.
No, I bet even worse. I'm a horrible gambler. I had him at minus 265, number one pick, because I thought it would be minus 1,000. I thought it would be a lot.
Right. So now you can go. I'm looking at FanDuel. You can get him at plus 300 right now. So
yeah,
I mean, it just shows how much the market has cooled on Hutchinson. But at the same time, this guy's been. If you go back to the preseason rankings of mock drafts from like last year, like I think Spencer Rattler was like number one, but Aiden Hutchinson has been frequently mentioned as the number one pick. He's probably been the hottest name as the number one pick throughout the course of the season. And he has the highest floor in terms of a defensive end. Now, obviously the bulky is obviously looking at Trayvon Walker and just his athleticism and, the talent and, maybe the production doesn't always show on the film, but I think that there's still a chance that Hutchinson is the pick here, just because, like, with the Jaguars, they're starting a new franchise pretty much with a new head coach, some seemingly competent leadership there. Getting an edge rusher would supremely help their team, and getting somebody like Hutchinson who's proven, I think it makes a little bit more sense than taking a reach at Walker. Because if you strike out here, it's not going to be a good look. So I feel like you got to go conservative, but who knows?
I agree with you. We talked about this on the last podcast. I fully expected that Hutchinson would still be the pick. I have changed. I bet Walker minus 190 and minus 165 to be the first pick after what I heard on Monday, just because the market had moved so much. And I thought that it would be a higher number. Like, I felt like by the time we got to today, it would be minus 500. The fact that it's only minus 300, it's actually kind of surprising to me. Yeah. And what I also did was I took Hutchinson minus 145. At this point, I'm just trying to save my ass. If I lose a little bit of money on it, fine. But what I don't want to do is be so hard-headed that I'm like, no, Hutchinson's still going to be the first pick, and I'm just doubling down on losing bets.
Right.
Okay, if I lose a couple $100 because I thought Hutchinson would go one and he doesn't, great. I have 45 other bets. I'm trying to make money at the end of this thing. That's kind of where I am right now. Hutchinson minus 250-ish to be the second pick right now. I got him at my minus 140, so I feel like that's good value.
That's value, yeah.
And let's move on to the second pick. If it isn't Hutchinson at number 2, let's say Walker goes 1. Let's say Hutchinson somehow doesn't go 2. It's going to be Kavon Thibodeaux, and I already have positions at plus 500 and plus 450, and for Thibodeaux to be a top 5 pick. So I feel like I'm covered at number 2 regardless of what happens here. The idea that Dan Campbell would want Aiden Hutchinson, I'm sure that the Ford family does also, but it seems like Brad Holmes is really the one that's running the show. He's actually been handed the keys and has the full authority to do what he wants to do. And Brad Holmes has done more work on Kavon Thibodeaux than anyone else in the entire draft. And I'm thinking that there's a legitimate chance that Thibodeaux ends up being the number 2 pick, regardless of who gets picked at number 1. So as we talked about, Matthew Friedman, who from Betting Pros and Fantasy Pros, put out a tweet earlier that said all the sharp mockers have Thibodeaux potentially slipping as far as 8 at this point. And the betting market does not reflect that at all. In fact, now Thibodeaux minus 650 at some places to be a top 5 selection. His over-under is 4.5 right now, minus 180. So that would make me think, okay, he's going 2, 3, or 4. Where does he fit in? Because right now we think Stingley is going to end up going 3, maybe Sauce.
Yeah.
4, it seems like every Jets beat reporter has said they're out on Thibodeaux and that they may take Jermaine Johnson at number 4 or a wide receiver or Ike Ekwonu. It seems like KT's out of that. So how do those two things work together, and who do we believe? The sharp mockers who traditionally have been the best at finding value early on for you to make bets, or the betting place, the betting market, which says Thibodeaux is going to be a top 5 pick, regardless of what you think. He's going to go earlier than people are expecting right now. I don't know where I land on that.
Yeah, it's tricky. And, as we've been doing these pods over the last couple of weeks, the thing that I've been troubled with is who's the guy that's going to be the faller. And at first it was going to be Trayvon Walker. And then all of a sudden Peter King puts out a mock draft and he becomes the odds on favorite to become number one. The next one is Evan Neal. He's also been a slider. But the person that I was also concerned about is Kavon Thibodeaux. And I was all in on Thibodeaux. I have him at second. Right after we did our pod, actually, I made that bet because you were so convincing of it. And now I'm a bit worried right now because the market to me seems too inconsistent. And while you could follow a whole bunch of sharp mockers, they're not actually the ones that are getting the sources to at least that I can see, other than Peter King and the more notable names that actually have access to these teams. But I'm a little bit concerned. So I'm going to take the hedge point here, and I'm going to take the Kavon Thibodeaux over 4.5. It's at plus 140, plus 112, I believe, on FanDuel. Yeah, plus 112. I'll take the plus money there just for the risk of him falling out of here. He doesn't have, I mean, obviously on the field, nasty, just a beast. But all these little things that have been coming up to kind of push his value down, I feel like there's something there to that, and maybe someone gets gung shy at the top of the draft here at Detroit. Because if he doesn't go to the Lions, the next question is, where does he go? Does he go? Does Houston go with the edge rusher? They absolutely need one, but they also like their cornerbacks. But having a defensive-minded head coach in Lovie Smith there, I think it makes sense that they're going to go defense. But I could also see them going offensive linemen. So this is where it gets really tricky. And I think Aquanu is a guy that's not going to fall down. Like, he's not going to go after probably number 5, as late as 5.
5.
So someone's got to fall out of here, and I'm gonna take the risk and take the plus money with it being Thibodeaux, since I already have a position there. But I don't feel great about it because, as you're right, like I think the homework that the Detroit Lions have done on him probably bodes well that he could land there still.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to end up net out on this. I'm definitely a little scared of him slipping past 5. Top 5 is like the most important thing to me. If I have like my sweat list, like Thibodeaux top 5 is definitely up there. But it depends on like what happens to knock him out. If it's Derek Stingley third that ends up knocking him down, then I'm going to end up like way ahead on this deal. Stingley's easily at this point my biggest position. So that's like the one. As long as he goes top 10, we're golden. If he ends up at like 3, 5, 7, I'm going to be really freaking happy. But
dude, Stingley, no worse. I don't think he goes past Seattle at 9. Like, that just makes so much sense for their team and what they need, unless they go quarterback and totally flip the script. But like, I don't think Pete Carroll's going to do that.
Yeah, a little inside baseball here. One of my sites had Stingley minus 200 to be a top 10 pick as of this morning, and I got told that I'm not allowed to bet anymore on that because I was hammering it too.
You're maxed out.
Yeah, they didn't want any more smoke. So, whoops. I think that's a lock. Like, most of the rest of the market, somewhere between minus 325, minus 375 on that right now. I still think that's a good bet. I don't think there's any chance he gets past 9. And even if he does, if the Jets don't take Sauce at 4, why wouldn't they take Stingley at 10?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to come away with a defensive player at some point in those 2 picks.
Speaking of the Jets, so a lot of smoke around them taking Jermaine Johnson at 4. I get it, but I think there's a chance that Jermaine Johnson's there at 10. So I don't know why you would take him at 4, really. It depends on if Thibodeaux's there and how that all works out. I mean, if there's a chance that Hutchinson somehow ends up at 4, obviously it seems like they would take him. But with the 10th pick, do you think that they're going to end up getting a deal for a wide receiver before we get to tomorrow night?
A deal for a wide receiver, I think they're going to make a move for a wide receiver. Who it will be is the question. I'm curious about what the Falcons ultimately decide to do. I think that's going to be a huge impact on what the Jets ultimately decide. But they could certainly could. I think there's going to be some trades in this draft for sure. Like, just with all the QB conversations of people wanting to move up and some people having 2 picks in the first round, they could package that up and get a little bit higher, move back and so forth. So the Jets definitely have some leverage here, having 2 top 10 picks. I don't know that I'm going to go to the lengths of, we're going to get Deebo Samuel rumors or anything like that. But I think no less. They're going to end up with a defensive player, likely an edge rusher, and a wide receiver. Unless yeah, unless Ahmad Garner, unless he falls, I could see that too. But yeah, I could definitely see that playing out. So the question is like, so one of the bets that I just recently placed is like, second wide receiver off the board.
Yeah.
I was already on Drake London under 11.5, so I'm holding firm to that. I feel pretty good about it. Worst case, he goes to the Commanders. I have seen him mocked as late as 15 to the Eagles, though, which is interesting. So I hope he doesn't fall that way. But if he doesn't fall, then that means Jameson Williams may fall too. So I don't know, that whole Chris Olave. There's going to be a lot of wide receivers going in those middle rounds there. It's going to make it really interesting here on that pick, but I like him to be the second wide receiver off the board because if Garrett Wilson goes to the Falcons, I think that almost guarantees London to the Jets. So
interesting.
That's what I'm hoping it plays out.
So I've thought a lot about the wide receiver market, and I haven't done all that much with it. I do have a Garrett Wilson under 10.5 that I bet on April 7th.
That seems good.
Okay. I feel good about that. I mean, there's two spots there, Falcons and the Jets, where he's probably at least in consideration to be taken.
Yeah.
I have a Jameson Williams, first wide receiver off the board, plus 330. I think I bet that more the number than anything else. It's like plus 125 right now.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it, honestly, for wide receivers. Because I have Chris Olave under 17.5 because I didn't think there was a chance he gets past the Chargers.
Agreed.
So those are my three, but in what order they go, I'm really not sure because there hasn't been any team that says, "Oh, I love this receiver over this receiver." Yeah. There's no really reporting.
There's no bona fide number one. You're right.
We're kind of guessing. So if I had to guess right now, yeah, I would say Wilson 8, and then either Williams or Drake London at 10, Chris Olave or Drake London at 11,
right,
and then 15 would be whatever is left of the top 4 receivers. The Eagles are probably going to take, unless there's like. If Kyle Hamilton's there, maybe they take Kyle Hamilton over a wide receiver. If McDuffie's there, maybe they'd go, defensive backfield instead of a wide receiver and wait for maybe Treylon Burks at 18. Or even if one of the wide receivers somehow slips past the Saints because they want to take Kenny Pickett at 16, maybe they get the wide receiver and Kyle Hamilton. I don't know. The Eagles are really interesting, but I definitely feel like they're in the ballpark for a defensive back and a wide receiver combo. Just which one ends up there, and if they have to take one at 15 or 18, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they also look into Jordan Davis. His market's been really interesting.
Yeah,
I've seen him. They've done a lot of homework on him, and I think that he could be one of those. I mean, the Eagles defense, they're going to be running some 3-4 schemes there where he could be the nose tackle, but he's such an athletic freak, and for his size, the speed that he has, like I think he could be a game changer. So I actually put in some money on him too, under 13.5, which I would love if he fell to the birds with me. Like as a fan, I would be happy about that, just because their line is just getting older and older. Fletcher Cox just got re-signed, but only to a 1-year deal. But I think he's a great fit for the Baltimore Ravens, and they pick at 13. I think that makes a lot of sense for them.
They pick at 14.
14.
Yeah, so I'm assuming the number you actually bet was under 14.5.
Yeah, 14. You got it right. 14. Okay. You read it.
So I have an over 13.5 that I bet on somewhere early. Jordan Davis, April 6th, over 13.5 minus 155. And I thought about, the market was saying he's going to get pushed up, probably to like the Chargers, somewhere that range. And now it seems like it's come back down. And I do think as long as the Ravens don't move, him at 14 is like a lock. So like that over 13.5, under 14.5, probably the right space right now for you to be in. Obviously would be an awesome fit for him.
Yeah.
Let me go back to 13 for a second. Oh, actually, I have so many thoughts. So
let's go back to the Commanders for a second. Well, I guess we kind of already talked about it because they're probably going to go wide receiver, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I want to say on the Commanders very quickly was for them to take a wide receiver with their first pick minus 110 now. Wide receiver. So kind of like that one. If you can get that one on the board, I'd probably bet that to like 150-ish, something like that in that range. But it's also interesting to think that if they would take a wide receiver, because the line on the Vikings to take a wide receiver at 12 have plummeted. I saw it at plus 1,000 2 days ago. Now it's at plus 275. They have a cornerback still favored. So obviously McDuffie would be on the board there. However, if one of the wide receivers that they really like is still there, don't be surprised if the Vikings go rogue and take a receiver.
Do you think there's a possibility if Jermaine Johnson doesn't go in the top 10? Do you think that that's a possible landing spot for him?
Yeah,
being that the
absolutely.
Minnesota Vikings definitely need some defensive edge support there.
I think if Jermaine Johnson makes it past 10 to the Jets, I think that a lot of teams would be trying to trade up to 11 with the Commanders to try and get him there. I'd be very surprised. That seems like the right spot. Ultimately, I think that Johnson's probably going to go 9th to Seattle, but trying to predict what Seattle's going to do is basically a dumb experiment. So I'm not even going to try. So 12 Vikings, cornerback or wide receiver. 13, I think, is the first bona fide trade out spot pending what Carolina does. I have a deal that I know is on the table that if Malik Willis is there at 13, Houston trades with the Steelers. They get 20 and 52. Steelers get 13 and 107, and the Steelers come up and take Malik Willis. I am very confident that that is a deal that is on the table right now.
Wow. I mean, I could see it. You know, how are you still feeling about the quarterbacks over 2.5 in the first round?
So I don't have an over 2.5. I have an under 3.5, which I think is the right
under
side
3.5.
there.
Okay, yeah, that is a good one. Good.
That was the first bet that I made on March 8th. I bet it at minus 225. It's like minus 300, 330, something like that. I feel good about that. Seems like, we had this little bit of this movement last week where people were talking about, we could get Matt Corral and Desmond Ridder at the end of the first round. Maybe we'll get 4. And I was like, I don't think that makes any sense to me. And now it seems like every sharp mocker is like, all right, the quarterbacks are going to drop this class. Matt Freeman, I know he tweeted out that he may only have 1 in his final mock draft, which I would be shocked by. I think that we're going to get 2 or 3. I'm very sure that Willis is going to go round 1. Whether or not he's the first guy, I don't know. Based on the mock drafts that I'm doing right now, yes, I think that trade of the Steelers starts the market. I don't know where Pickett goes. Every time I've done a mock draft, I have him going to Tennessee at 26 or Detroit at 32. And then I have Ridder going to the other one. So I think that we're going to end up with 3, but I wouldn't be surprised at 2. And I would not be surprised. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud and on a show, but I would not be surprised if Kenny Pickett is not drafted in the first round of the NFL draft.
Yeah. I mean, Peter King had Matt Corral coming up in the back end of there over Pickett. So, yeah, maybe it's possible, man. Them small hands, I don't know, man. That might really hold him back.
I do have a random bet on this somewhere. I have Desmond Ridder, top 32 pick. I talked about that last time, minus 125. I thought that number would move towards like 200. It stayed at 125. It's fine. I think that's the right price, but hopefully someone trades up to that 32 spot with Detroit or someone to grab him. Right. The other one that I have is Desmond Ridder to be the second quarterback taken plus 550.
That's compelling, man, because there's a drop off after Malik Willis, right? Like it's the Pickett, it's the Corral, I feel like that's good value considering like it's going to be a crapshoot after Willis goes. Assuming whenever Willis goes, if they trade up, maybe people will start getting a little antsy and start doing similar things to kind of make sure they don't miss out on it.
Yeah, there's just
but
not
there's so much value, but like how could a QB run go like from if the Steelers move up? How many people are going to be that aggressive to get another quarterback? Like,
how many people need quarterbacks? Like we do this thing every year, but like
3, maybe.
Yeah, Seattle, Carolina, and Pittsburgh are the fairly obvious ones, and then you have like Saints and Atlanta. Like you really have 5 that are like
5 teams.
We really maybe have to do something,
right?
But then you have a team like the Giants who. I can see them flipping out that 7th pick if someone wants to move up for someone that's dropping on the board. And they're like, all right, we're just going to move our chips to 2023 and go try and get CJ Stroud. So I think some teams are going to play this draft where they're trying to trade out of the round 1 in order to get draft capital for 2023 because it's a much better class overall, especially in terms of top tier talent.
Right. Agreed.
All right. So we've made it past the Eagles and the Saints. The bottom of the board, who the hell knows what's going to happen? But I'll give some bets based on what I'm hearing right now. Some round 1, like top 32 bets that I really like, and maybe some head-to-heads. I'll kind of go through the list that I missed last couple days. So Trent McDuffie under 16.5. I don't think that he makes it to the Chargers, so that would be a good bet on the board, minus 120 right now. Daxton Hill to be a first-round pick, I bet at minus 150. You can get that up to minus 200 right now. Very confident that he's going to end up being a first-round pick. And I also took him to be taken over Desmond Ridder before Desmond Ridder. I think that Daxton Hill, the first place that he could get taken would be like 23 to Arizona. And I think the lowest he'll go would be like 30 to Kansas City. So I think somewhere in that range is probably pretty good for him. Kyer Elam, cornerback from Florida. I bet him to be a first-round pick. And I also bet in conjunction with that, over 4.5 cornerbacks plus 110 in round one. I think the cornerbacks between Elam, I think the 5 that come off the board in round one are Stingley, Gardner, McDuffie. I also bet McDuffie to be the third cornerback off the board, minus 165, which I like.
That's a really good pick. Yeah.
Andrew Booth from Clemson and Elam. And potentially will depend. It depends on how they call his name in the actual draft. But I've seen Daxton Hill be labeled as a safety or a cornerback. For my sake, I hope that they call out that he's playing quarterback.
Oh,
that would be quarterback because I have over 4.5. I need some protection there. I also bet Kyer Elam to be picked ahead of Sky Moore. I'm really high on Sky Moore, but it seems like the market has moved away from him, and the market has moved away from George Pickens a little bit. So if you expect him to be a first-round pick, I would probably hedge out of that bet right now, and you can probably take his under. If it's like 35.5, something like that, I'd probably take the over on George at this point. A couple other guys that I like in the first round, Kenyon Green, minus 225, and Zion Johnson, minus 300. I bet both of those today. If you have some money left in your bankroll, that's kind of what you want to do tomorrow. Like those top 32s, those guys that are going to be like locks for first-round picks, just lay the wood. This is the one time a year that I would suggest that you lay the wood. It's the smart time to do it. Just go make $100 on your bet, even if you have to risk 300. Probably the smart way to do it. And George Karlaftis, over 23. And if you can find a place where you bet where he is not a first-round pick, go do that because he's like minus 1,600 to be a first-round pick at this point, top 32. And a lot of the smoke is that he's not going to make it in the first round at this point. So I think that's worth a little bit of a flyer if you can find it.
Well, that I hadn't heard that, and that's music to my ears because I saw in a couple of recent mocks I was checking out that the Eagles had him at like 18. And I was like, oh, gross. I do not want any parts of that. Speaking of which, one of the things I was just doing something with SGPN, and they're doing a mock draft later on today. Check it out if you guys want to. But I was drafting for behalf of the Eagles. So Chris Olave fell. The wide receivers were flying off the board, so he was the best one available. So I took him at 15. And at 18, I took Devin Lloyd. And there's a bet that I placed right after that was like Devin Lloyd to be the first linebacker off the board at minus 160. As you just said, like at some point.
Where'd you find that?
It's on FanDuel.
For Devin Lloyd to be the first linebacker off the board, minus 160?
Yeah.
I saw it at minus 600 yesterday. What happened?
What?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but like to me that was a logical bet that I had to do because I also see that the Eagles have done a lot of homework on Lloyd. They haven't drafted a linebacker since like the 70s or something like that in the first round. It's something crazy trend that the Eagles just always avoid the linebacker position or they address it later on in the draft. So this guy's an extremely good talent. And I could totally see him being one of the first linebackers, if not the first. So that just makes a ton of sense to me.
I may have to talk to you after this about putting money on that for me because that seems like an absolute lock to me.
Yeah,
and I definitely think that Lloyd's range kind of there is somewhere between the Eagles' second pick, so like 18, and then I don't think he gets past the Patriots at 21.
Definitely not the Patriots. I agree with you.
Are there any other bets on the board that you've made that we can talk about? Because then I'm kind of done for now.
Yeah, I pretty much went through all of the bets that I've made since the first go round. It's really just trying to hedge some positions. One thing I thought that was interesting was I bet Kyle Hamilton over 10.5 at plus 105. Last time he spoke, and now that's moved to 12.5. So that's good for me. But yeah, I'm wondering where he's going to go at this point because where's the fit, right? Like, who's going to take that risk with the combine numbers, even though he's like an extremely good talent, but we know that there's not a premium safeties, it just doesn't make sense to pay safeties money. So why would you draft them in the top 10? As we've seen with Jamal Adams and who's the other cornerback or other safety that wanted to get paid. His name escapes me, but it'll come back to me. But yeah, this doesn't make sense to pay for a safety in the top 10 picks. So where does he fall? Like that's where I'm kind of curious. Like when we're in that 12 to, I'd say probably 13 to 20 range, we're expecting some more of these cornerbacks and defensive backs to go along with the wide receivers. Like where's he fit into that?
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that he could go 11, 12, potentially 13 if Houston stays. Probably is a good place. Yeah. The Ravens don't really have a need for a safety, but like, God, he would be so good in Baltimore. And then 15, I don't see how he gets past 15 to the Eagles. That would shock me. That feels like his floor, but definitely like 11 to 15 kind of feels like his range. I wish maybe we'll talk to a sportsbook. Maybe we'll end up doing it next year. But like, you know how we talk about during the NFL preseason, you have the band bets, like they win between 7 and 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
I want the NFL draft, like between 18 and 21. Like that would be so much fun.
Just give me a range, right?
Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome. All right, couple of house cleaning notes for Champions Round before we head out of here. Obviously, tomorrow the draft will be all over. We'll be all over social media doing a ton of shows tomorrow. Friday, we're doing a drinking game. Dan, I might ask you to join us for this. During round 2 of the NFL draft, the way that it works, you take a sip if a running back or a wide receiver is taken, 2 sips if a tight end or quarterback's taken or a trade is completed. You have to go shotgun a beer if someone jumps in the Bellagio fountain. So all sorts of fun stuff we'll talk about, but we'll be live on Twitter during the draft during round 2 on Friday. Later this afternoon, actually in 17 minutes, we're doing a full mock draft with the entire CR content team. So that'll be fun. And then we're doing 2 leagues later that we'll live stream on Twitter. Big Board Showdown drafts. Speaking of which, you have about 26 hours at this point to go do Big Board Showdown drafts. Everybody seems to really enjoy it. Super fun. Awesome. Dan, I know you're doing one next later tonight at 4 p.m. with us. Our Experts League, which you can see, we'll live stream that one on Twitter also. And we have 5 7-6 contests going on right now, and the jerseys that you can win if you finish in first place there: Travis Kelce, Lamar Jackson, Gabe Davis, Micah Hyde, and Kwity Paye. So lots of cool signed gear. Go ahead and enter those contests. Limited spots available in those, so make sure to get in now for your chance to win those jerseys. So on the way out, Dan, good luck with all your bets tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be talking all day, placing a lot more.
Sir.
I'm going to play this Big Board Showdown on the video on the way out, and then we will talk to you guys tomorrow. See ya.
Peace.